Dwight Underwood, Steve Bridges, Greg Abbott, and Frank Nelson were the four musketeers. They graduated from high school together, and to save money, they all lived at home and attended the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, the same city they were all from. Steve, Greg, and Frank were all in the same business administration program, but the unconventional Dwight took a different path. He majored in history. He was always fascinated by the events of the past. The four friends always supported each other. If someone contacted one of them, they contacted all of them. They always laughed and made fun of each other and rarely parted. They often went on group dates, but neither of them was serious about one girl. That was until their third year. They were invited to a fraternity party where a sorority event was being held. It was there that Dwight noticed a young, shy, beautiful girl who immediately attracted his attention. His friends noticed her too, but Dwight decided to approach her first. They never quarreled over girls, since there were enough fish in the sea. She had long, sandy hair that reached her waist. Dwight really liked long hair, like a lot of guys, so he decided to approach her and introduce himself. "Hi, I'm Dwight. I hope you don't mind if I say that you are very beautiful. I almost didn't come to this party today, but now I'm glad I came. How are you?" Dwight almost kicked himself for his corny, conservative greeting, but was relieved when she smiled and responded. "Hi, Dwight. I'm fine, thank you. My name is Patricia Kuntz. I'm a freshman, so this is all new to me. What is your specialty?" she asked. Story. I understand that this is not the most popular specialty in the world, but I have always been fascinated by the past, especially the ancient past. I'm in my third year, so I have a couple of years more experience than you. And you? Philosophy or anthropology. I'm not sure yet, but I hope I'll decide soon. Perhaps we will have something in common with the great philosophers of the past. How interesting. Yes, we will have many overlapping topics to discuss. I see your hands are empty. Can I get you a drink? I'm not 21 yet, so just a Coke if you don't mind, she replied. I just turned 21, so I'll grab a Coke with you too. I'll be right back, Patricia. Don't go anywhere, he said with a wide smile. Patricia responded with a smile. I'll be here when you get back, I promise. When Dwight returned with the steaks, he saw her talking to another guy. It was one of his close friends, Frank Nelson. Handing Patricia her Coke, he asked, Hey Frank, what's new? And let him know to leave. Oh, don't mind me, Frank said. I was just taking your place until you got back, buddy. I've got your back. And he quickly apologized and left. Patricia and Dwight hit it off. Their shared interest in people of ancient history became the starting point for a developing relationship. Patricia lived on campus with a fraternity. She was jealous of Dwight's close relationship with his parents, Earl and Harriet. She wanted freedom from her parents, so she lived on campus. They spent as much time together as possible and seemed inseparable. Steve, Greg, and Frank continued to date other girls, but group dates were a must when they could juggle their schedules. On campus, the three kept tabs on Patricia for Dwight while he was in his classes. If they saw someone trying to hit on Patricia, they made it clear that she was busy, and she liked not having to fend off intrusive guys. Dwight invited her home for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and his parents, Earl and Harriet, fell in love with her as much as she loved them. Dwight graduated with a bachelor's degree in history at the end of Patricia's sophomore year. But he did not complete his education. His professors recommended that he continue his studies and obtain a higher degree, and he agreed with them, in part to remain at the university for 2 more years for his master's degree, while Patricia focused on philosophy. She took him to her home in Charlotte many times, and her parents were very impressed by his straightforwardness and dedication to history. They could listen for hours to him telling stories about the past that they had never heard of, and he would add details that were unfamiliar to them in known stories. Patricia was proud of her man. Steve, Greg, and Frank graduated from business school and successfully got jobs. Steve and Greg worked together at one company, and Frank got a good position at another company. By then, all three were already in serious relationships and were married within 18 months. In all cases, Dwight was the best man at all three weddings, and the other two were groomsmen. They persuaded Dwight to find a job, even offered to employ him with them. But he was still passionate about history and did not see himself in any other job. Needless to say, Patricia might have been shy when they first met, but she was a real tigress in the bedroom. The girl was completely uninhibited when it came to Dwight. She never initiated new things in the bedroom, but she was never reluctant to try what Dwight suggested, and she had a very healthy appetite for sex. She never allowed Dwight to leave her bed until he was completely spent. They knew that they belonged to each other forever, and shortly before graduation, Dwight proposed to her, to which Patricia almost smothered him in her arms, shouting yes. Dwight really worked hard to get his master's degree. For him, it was as natural as breathing. He graduated with honors and was strongly encouraged by his professors to apply for several scholarships, which he gladly did. Patricia received a bachelor's degree in philosophy and quickly found work as a social worker. She had a passion for helping others. She and Dwight moved into a small apartment in Charlotte while planning their future. Her mother said they would need a year to plan the perfect wedding, so they set the wedding date for a year after his proposal. The four musketeers still often met and went out together, three with their wives and Dwight with his beautiful bride. "Honey, you won't believe it." "What, honey?" asked Patricia. "Scholarship, Truman Scholarship. This letter says I won it. Can you believe it? I can transfer my credits to Duke University, and in 2 years I will have a PhD in history. I can become a professor and teach at any university in the state. I will just need to work at one of the public universities for 4 years after graduation, and the terms of the scholarship will be fulfilled." "Oh, that's great news, Dwight. This is your dream come true. I am so happy for you. If anyone deserves it, it's you," she said proudly. "But why Duke?" "Well, first of all, Duke is the university I wanted to go to from the very beginning if my parents could afford it. Nothing bad about Charlotte, it's a great university, but my dream has always been to graduate from Duke. They have an amazing graduate program, and it will complete my education perfectly. It says here that all my tuition, hostel, and dining expenses for both years will be fully covered by the scholarship. In fact, it is free tuition. But we already live here in Charlotte. I just started a new job and love it. I wouldn't want to move to Durham." "Oh, but you don't have to, honey. Durham is just 225 kilometers away. It's only a 2.25-hour drive. I will live there during the week and come home every weekend. And I'll come home for any important events, like your birthday or anything like that. Once I get my PhD, I can become a full professor rather than a temporary instructor. This is my dream job, honey, and it's so close that I can almost feel it. Will you support me in this?" "Of course, expensive. But what about rent and bills here? It will be very difficult to live only on my salary." "That's the beauty of it, darling. I'll work here all summer and save every cent. While I'm at Duke, I'll become a teaching assistant or a part-time research assistant, any job that pays money. I might work the evening shift at a grocery store there or something like that. I'll bring every cent home for us, honey. When I get my PhD, I will apply to be a professor here in Charlotte, teaching what I love, and the starting salary will be much higher than our three friends with their business degrees." Hearing his enthusiasm and seeing the logic of his plan, Patricia realized the long-term benefits of temporary inconvenience. "I'm with you, Dwight, until the end, but you have to come home every week like you promised, because by Friday night I'll miss you terribly." "You won't be alone in this, darling. We will have sex until neither of us can walk straight," he laughed. She kissed him passionately and said in a husky voice, "I'm counting on it, big boy." True to his word, Dwight worked all summer and managed to significantly increase their joint bank account to cover rent and basic bills. Any extra money he would make during a week at Duke would be unnecessary and would give them a lot of wiggle room. In addition, Patricia worked closely with her mother and future mother-in-law to make hundreds of decisions regarding their upcoming wedding. Classes at Duke were challenging, but they were exactly what Dwight expected. He had to look at history from different perspectives, and it fascinated him. 3 months had passed since the start of his first year of doctoral training when on Thursday evening he received the following cryptic message. You must return home immediately. Don't call home and don't tell anyone you're coming. Just show up. I can't tell Steve or anyone else but you. You will see for yourself why. I am so sorry. Sonia. Sonia was the wife of Steve, one of his best friends. What was it that she couldn't tell her own husband, but could tell me, Dwight wondered. But Sonia was like a sister to him, and they were as close as friends can be without an intimate connection. She never played stupid tricks on him. This was a serious girl sending a serious message. It was 17:30. If he gets in the car immediately, he can be home by 7:45 p.m., breaking every speed limit in the state. He miraculously made it there, arriving at 7:20 p.m. without getting a ticket. There was no light in his apartment, so he quietly walked inside and tiptoed towards the bedroom. He expected an unpleasant sight. As he approached the open bedroom door, he heard the sounds of flesh slapping, the same sounds of sex that he knew all too well. But it wasn't him who had sex with his fiancée. It was one of the four musketeers, Frank Nelson. The sight was devastating, heartbreaking, and painful. The couple had passionate sex, not noticing that Dwight was not only watching, but also recording in high definition on his mobile phone. After more than 2 minutes of recording the immoral act, Dwight loudly cleared his throat. Agam. The shocked couple immediately jumped up, ready to defend themselves from a possible attacker until they realized who was in front of them. Dwight, she screamed. What are you doing here? I live here, remember? Or at least he lived. I paid the rent for this apartment, but I won't do it anymore. Frank, trying to cover his nakedness in front of one of his best friends, blurted out, It's not what you think, I swear. Well, Frank, it seems to me that you had sex with my fiancée, even though you are married to another woman. Please tell me where I'm going wrong. It doesn't mean anything, I swear. Patricia screamed desperately, I never wanted this to happen, Dwight, and it will never happen again. Please, this is the first time I swear in my life. Frank, don't you think you should go to Darlene's house? Yes, of course, buddy. I'm very sorry. Patricia is right. None of us wanted this to happen. One thing just led to another, and... Get out of here, you bastard, Dwight shouted, and never show your face in front of me again, because if I ever see you again, your life could end right here and now. Horrified, Frank quickly put on his pants, grabbed his underwear, shirt, and shoes, and ran out of the room like a scared rat. Dwight, honey, please forgive me. We can survive this. I'll fix everything. I will do everything that you want. I swear, she begged, sobbing. He walked up to her trembling, naked body and took her hand. He deftly removed the wedding ring from her finger and put it in his pocket. She howled and sobbed, begging for forgiveness. Patricia, if you really want to do everything I ask for, this is what I'm asking for right now. Give me some space. Just the sight of you is enough to make me sick, and I need you to go somewhere for the night. Don't touch me. Just please go away and spend the night anywhere but here. Can you do this for me? He said through his teeth. Of course, dear. I'll give you time to calm down. I understand that you are upset, and you have every right to be. What we did to Frank was wrong and will not happen again. You were so far away, and he was here, and one thing led to another. Dwight demanded, I'm going to the bathroom. When I go out, I wish you weren't here. Don't say another word, just leave. Understood? She nodded silently in shock. Her world was crumbling before her eyes, but she knew she had to leave before he exploded. Dwight took a long pee, flushed the water, and slowly washed his hands. When he left, she was no longer there, as he had asked. He was glad for this emotional respite. He was temporarily stunned by what had happened. He didn't cry. His rage suppressed any possibility of tears at that moment. He spent the rest of the evening packing all his things into the car. Once he leaves the apartment, he will never return here again. When his phone rang and he saw it was Frank, he simply turned it off and put it on charge. He didn't want to talk to anyone that night. He didn't sleep well on the sofa. He will never lie on that bed again, even though he brought it from his home. He woke up on Friday morning around 9 o'clock and drove to the bank, where he withdrew half of the funds from their joint account. He contributed most of the funds, but did not want to leave her without money. They didn't share credit cards, and for that he was grateful. The apartment was registered in both hands, and the manager did not allow him to simply remove his name from the contract. So Dwight announced that they were moving out at the end of the month. He negotiated the rent with the manager and told him that he should talk to Patricia. Perhaps she would be willing to rent the apartment in her own name. Dwight then visited the jewelry store where he bought her ring and sold it back minus a 25% commission. He hated losing that amount of money, but it was still more money than he would have gotten at the pawn shop. He returned to the apartment one last time and turned on the phone. He ignored the many calls and texts that came in. He planned to look at them later. He opened a video from the night before and created a group message from his contact list. This included all their friends, as well as Patricia's parents and his own. The message simply said, "Wedding canceled," and he hit the send button. Of course, among his friends were Doreen and the wives of other musketeers. He immediately turned off his phone and returned to his dorm room at Duke University, moving all his belongings out of the car. He only missed one day of classes, which he could easily make up. But he still decided to make one special call. "Hi, Sonia. Thanks for the warning. I owe you." "I'm so sorry, Dwight. You didn't deserve this. At lunch yesterday, I sat in a booth with my back to Patricia and Frank. They didn't know I was there, but I heard them talking about their plans for the evening. I didn't know what to do. Tell Steve, you, or anyone else. I couldn't tell Steve. He would have killed Frank. You've always been the one to stay calm in difficult situations, so I felt like I should let you find out for yourself." "Sonia, you have nothing to apologize for. You didn't do anything wrong. You helped me. You saved me from marrying a cheap cheater, and as I said, I owe you. But I just can't talk to anyone right now. Can you explain to everyone why I won't be answering my calls for a while? I need to focus on my studies and try to heal the wounds of this double betrayal. Oh, by the way, I never want to hear the names of that bastard and that cheater ever again. I can't tell you what to do with them, but for me, they are both gone from my life forever. I've spent more than 4 years of my life on it, and I'm not going to waste another second. I understand you completely, Dwight, and I don't blame you one bit. I will convey everything to everyone as you asked, only on one condition." "Which one?" "If I call or text you, you won't ignore me. If you feel like you owe me like you said, promise that you won't avoid me. Agreed?" "Agreed, Sonia. Say hi to Steve and Greg. If you call or write, I will answer if my phone is on. I promise," Dwight agreed. 2 weeks passed, and Dwight received an incoming call from Sonia. "Hey girl, how are you?" "Oh, it's crazy here, as you can imagine, but it doesn't matter. What really matters is how are you doing? There are good days and bad days. Hopefully there will be less and less bad ones, but I must admit that there are a lot of amazing girls here on campus. I didn't notice them before because my eyes were only on one, but now I can see. Well, I'm glad to see that you still have hot blood flowing through you. Just be careful, Dwight." "Oh, I will, believe me. Anyway, I just wanted to give you some news. Doreen kicked the bastard out, but guess what? She just found out she's pregnant, so they're going through intense counseling to try and make things right. She's so angry that if she takes him back, she'll keep him on a very short leash," Sonia said. She continued, "We all basically ignore him. He's staff non grata here, and he hates it. To hell with it, I say. Now we girls are still friends with Doreen. She didn't cheat, her husband did, so we won't leave her as a friend. She told the bastard to apologize to you personally, but he told her that if you see him again, you might kill him, and he believes that," she said, laughing. "And this bitch is calling nonstop, begging one of us to intervene on her behalf. She says that you don't answer her calls and messages, and communication is necessary to make amends. She's crazy if she thinks I'll ever want to talk to her again. It will not happen. I said my piece, called off the wedding, and that chapter of my life is behind me as far as I'm concerned. Sonia continued, I understand you, and that's why I'm calling you now. None of us answer her calls anymore. But she still leaves messages, as I'm sure you do too. But since you're not answering, she might show up at Duke this weekend, or so she told us. You can do whatever you want with this information. We just didn't want our friend to be caught off guard if she showed up unexpectedly. I still have no desire to cross paths with her again. I need to think of something to keep me occupied this weekend and disrupt her plans. Hey, I have a great idea. Greg recently bought a boat. I'll call his wife Debbie and see if we can arrange for the 5 of us to go camping this weekend at the lake. Steve and Greg are so eager to help their brother get through this difficult period. We'll jet ski, have fun, and have a great time. What do you say? This bitch will show up at Duke and leave with nothing, and you'll have more fun than ever. Do you agree? Sonia insisted. Of course, why not? I just don't want to be the odd one out and ruin everyone's weekend. I'm not the best conversationalist right now, as you can tell, he added. Stop doing that. It's been so long since we saw you. Just come to Steve and me on Friday at 18 o'clock with your sleeping bag. We'll take care of the rest. You can come with us to the lake. I'll write to you if anything changes. Agreed? Agreed, Sonia. And thanks to you and the guys. Oh, you're welcome. See you Friday, Dwight. Before heading to Charlotte on Friday, Dwight left his Duke roommate a short, sarcastic note sealed in an envelope addressed to Patricia Kuntz. It said, Stop calling, texting, and texting. I don't want to hear about you anymore. As the ancient philosopher Hippocrates once wisely said, eat shit and die. Dwight never heard from Patricia again. He arrived a few minutes before 6. As soon as he pulled up, his buddy Steve ran out of the house and gave his friend a bear hug. Damn man, it's been forever since we've seen you. Come in. Sonia has prepared beer for you. Dwight returned the hug and greeting and followed him inside. Sonia was a wonderful sight for tired eyes. She was wearing short denim shorts and a bright yellow t-shirt. Obviously, she wasn't wearing a bra. Catching Dwight's eye appraising her breasts, she simply said, Hey, it's camping, by the grace of God. I don't have anything you haven't seen before, so I can wear comfy clothes. Everyone laughed as she hugged Dwight. It's so great to see you, Dwight. Steve is mad at me, saying it's too early, but I remember what you said about not being the odd one out, and I decided to do something about it. Evelyn? Steve said, I'm sorry, buddy. It was Sonia's idea. We almost got into a fight over it. A short 21-year-old red-headed beauty came out of the bathroom and joined them in the kitchen. Sonia introduced her. Dwight, this is my cousin, Evelyn Henderson. Her mother and my mother are sisters. I'm sure you remember her from our wedding. She served drinks at our reception. Of course, Dwight said sheepishly. Dwight Underwood, he introduced himself, holding out his hand. Nice to see you again. Have you visited Stephen and Sonia? Evelyn smiled shyly, shaking his hand. She looked like a superheroine from a Marvel movie. Sonia interrupted before Evelyn could respond. Evelyn is coming with us for the weekend, Dwight. Wouldn't that be great? She said enthusiastically. Steve simply shifted from foot to foot, looking at the floor, allowing his energetic wife to set up his best friend on a blind date with his seductive cousin. Of course, Dwight had no idea he was being set up, so he responded amiably, Sure, the more the merrier. They drove together to Lake Norman, which was about a half-hour's drive from Charlotte. There they met Greg and his wife Debbie. After hugging and talking about the past, they chose a campsite and began setting up tents. Only then did Dwight realize that they had 3 two-person tents. Steve and Sonia began setting up their tent in one corner of the camp, Greg and Debbie about 50 feet away, and Dwight and Evelyn stood looking at each other. Evelyn shrugged and said, I swear I didn't know. I was caught off guard just like you. I thought there would be one big tent. I didn't have the slightest idea. If you want, I'll make Sonia let me sleep with her and Steve stay with you, or they can just take me home. Decide for yourself, Dwight. Dwight asked, "Do you even have your own sleeping bag?" "Yes," she replied. "This is an old sleeping bag from my childhood, but it is in good condition and I can still fit in it." Dwight looked at this extremely attractive girl and said, "I agree, if you don't mind. We're all adults, after all, but I'll have to talk to Sonia later to put us in this situation. Trust me, I will talk to her too, but she told me a little about your situation. I'm sorry, we're not all that bad, you know. One thing she said was that you are a perfect gentleman and I will be completely safe with you, and based on what I have seen so far, I believe her." Dwight smiled at the compliment, and she helped him set up the tent. He suggested leaving the sleeping bags rolled up inside the tent to prevent them from picking up moisture from the air until nightfall. It seemed reasonable to her. The weather was fine and no rain was expected. Greg and Debbie bought several KFC buckets of sides for dinner so they could eat quickly and easily clean up after eating. Married couples brought enough chairs for everyone. That night, they lit a fire, sat around it, and told funny stories from the past, especially making fun of Dwight for the amusement of Evelyn, who immediately felt comfortable with him and everyone. Suddenly, Greg and Steve pretended to be sleepy and said it was time for old married couples to go to bed. Of course, everyone knew what they would be doing in the tent soon. Dwight asked Evelyn, "Would you like to go for a walk?" "Of course," she replied. "It won't be long before animal noises start coming from those two tents," she laughed. "I'm sure they think it's musical," Dwight jokes. She joined in his laughter. They walked to the shore of the lake and along the pier where several boats were moored. 3/4 of the moon brightly illuminated the night sky. Evelyn began, "Obviously, we were brought together on purpose. You're not the only one who's experienced a bad relationship. But mine lasted only a year and a half. We talked about marriage, but he hasn't proposed yet. Anyway, he called me saying he had to work late Friday night, so I decided to go to the movies with one of my friends. Imagine my surprise when I saw this bastard in the same movie theater with a dirty blonde. I didn't know her, but obviously he knew her because his hands were everywhere and they kissed a lot." Evelyn continued, "I put on a hoodie to hide my identity and followed them in my car to her apartment because it clearly wasn't his. I wanted to wait until he came out and tell him everything. He stayed all night. I know for sure that he did not go out. The next morning, when he came out satisfied and happy, I walked up to him, slapped him in the face, gave him back the friendship ring he had given me, and left, telling him never to call me again. He stopped calling after 2 weeks." Dwight echoed her idea that all men should not be judged by this one thing. He then told her his story about Patricia. They felt each other's pain and realized that they had this in common. When she finally raised her head, he saw her tears running down her face in the moonlight. He wiped away her tears with his thumbs and kissed her cheek. "Now that we've discussed that, let's put the past behind us this weekend and try to create new fun memories to replace the old ones." "Sounds great," she replied as he took her small hand in his, and they walked and talked for almost an hour and a half, getting to know each other better. He told her that he thought Sonia was wonderful and asked her not to be too hard on her because her heart was in the right place. Evelyn said she would remember this. Returning to camp, he allowed her to change into the tent first and climb into her sleeping bag. When he walked in, he simply dropped his shirt and pants and kept his boxers on. They talked some more until they fell asleep. The next morning, the 3 women prepared a hearty breakfast of eggs, sausage, bacon, and pancakes. Everyone was completely full after such a treat. The men helped clear the table, as the women did an excellent job of cooking. Everyone went to the shower room to change into swimsuits. Dwight's eyes nearly popped out of his head when he saw Evelyn in her tiny fluorescent green bikini. Sonia and Debbie wore more conservative 2-piece swimsuits and repeatedly slapped their husbands' hands for ogling the beauty. Then it dawned on Dwight, and he said to Evelyn, "Now I understand who you remind me of. Have you ever been told that you look a lot like the actress Kate Mara?" "I've heard that before," she admitted, "but she is much more beautiful than me, I think." "Oh, I disagree. he countered. She's the one who can't compare to you. Well, since we're talking about similarities, you yourself strongly resemble the singer Maluma, Evelyn said. After these words, Sonia and Debbie looked at Dwight with completely different eyes. Oh my God, she's right, Debbie screamed. I couldn't figure out what it was until now. Dwight simply blushed because he knew that many women thought Maluma was very sexy. Sonia chimed in. Now, if this isn't a match made in heaven, I don't know what is. Kate Mara and Maluma are right here in our camp. Hoo-hoo. Everyone laughed, but no one objected to such a similarity. When they went out on the lake in Greg's new boat, it turned out that Evelyn was the only one who had never water skied. Even though Dwight knew how to ski on one ski, he brought two with him to give her tips and instructions on how to stabilize and lean back slightly. On her third attempt, she stood up on two skis and was incredibly excited about her new skill. Greg tried to avoid the waves of other boats to give her as smooth water as possible. 15 minutes later, she fell and decided to rest for a while. She was incredibly pleased with her performance and Dwight's support. Back on the boat and watching the other skiers, she sat directly in front of Dwight, between his spread legs, resting her back and head on his chest. He hugged her, and the other couples whispered quietly as they noticed. Evelyn was immediately loved by everyone in the group. She had such a magnetic personality that she inevitably attracted people to her. It was something innate, not developed. All her life she easily made many friends, but her only problem was choosing a life partner. She believed that Arnold would be her forever love until she saw him spending the entire night in another woman's bed. Although her attraction to Dwight was immediate, they had both just come out of bad relationships, and she doubted the timing of a rebound relationship for both of them. However, she loved her cousin Sonia immensely and trusted her judgment about potential mates far more than her own. After all, she had the energetic and determined Steve, who obviously loved her more than anything in the world. Sonia clearly made the right choice. The girls brought a picnic, and shortly after noon Greg took the boat to a secluded cove where they ate sandwiches and drank beer, played in the water, and continued boating. Couples carefully applied sunscreen to each other to avoid burns in the open water. Evelyn showed no shyness when Dwight applied the cream, but he remained a gentleman. However, there was a palpable chemistry between them that everyone noticed, but no one said a word. No one wanted to spoil the budding romance between them, which they saw with their own eyes. That evening, after a large dinner of steak and baked potatoes, they heard live music from a nearby camp. The three couples took their chairs and walked over to them. The family who performed the music welcomed them warmly. The father played the guitar and sang bass, the mother played alto, the eldest daughter played soprano, and the son completed the quartet, adding his tenor. They sang together beautifully, performing a wide repertoire of songs, many of which their group sang along with them. Evelyn took Dwight's hand and didn't let go until the music stopped. She had already started to develop strong feelings for this man she had met just yesterday. She was afraid of her feelings. She shouldn't have felt them so badly so soon. She knew that these must be feelings on the rebound, and decided to guard herself from developing the relationship too quickly. One thing Evelyn didn't tell Dwight was that she had a low tolerance for alcohol. This greatly reduced her restraint, and she drank more than her norm. Later, when they returned to the tent, she threw herself into his arms, desperately seeking to satisfy the desires that had been building up all day. She needed this man in her life. She felt that this was her man. He was unlike anyone she had ever met. Steve and Greg chose him as best man at their weddings. She thought of the term best man. Yes, she agreed, he truly was the best person among the three, and she didn't want to miss him, or worse, have some other beauty come in his way and snatch him away. Kissing and caressing him, their passions were palpable. Even in the best of times with Arnold, she had never felt this intensity. She took his hand and placed it on her bare breast, forcing him to take it. Panting heavily, he said, "Evelyn, you are the most beautiful creature I have ever met. When I agreed to go on this trek, I never imagined that I would find such a precious treasure like you. I wasn't ready for intimacy so soon." Breathing as heavily as he did, she replied, "It's normal. We don't need a condom. I trust you in some way I can't explain. I trust you with my life. This doesn't sound like me at all. I have never been so free with another man so quickly. I'm on the pill, so we're protected. I'm yours, Dwight, right here, right now. Everything you want is yours. Ladies first, he responded quickly, moving over her and placing one knee between her legs. Then he carefully spread her legs apart. Without requiring any more persuasion, she spread her legs without hesitation, inviting him into her sanctuary of love. As the intense waves of pleasure coursing through every part of her being subsided, her muffled moans subsided, submitting to his will. He moved away from her face slightly, looking at her with as much love in his eyes as he could in the darkness. They slept peacefully that night, hugging each other. She held his hand tightly on her chest, not letting go for a minute. The two married couples knew that something intimate had happened between Evelyn and Dwight the night before, but no one joked or said a word about it. They all agreed not to utter a single word that could in any way disrupt or destroy the budding romance they had seen with their own eyes. The next day, after a leisurely breakfast, they went to the lake again, this time for cheesecake. Steve brought a huge inflatable bladder designed to be towed behind the boat. It easily accommodated two people. They took turns switching partners and enjoyed the cheesecake ride, but Evelyn and Dwight were never allowed to change partners. They knew what their friends were doing and didn't mind. They were having a great time jumping over the waves and bumps that Greg was specifically looking for to throw them off the cheesecake. It was a real show of armatures and elbows and flying legs all morning. Everyone laughed until their sides hurt. As they set up camp and packed up to head home, Dwight and Evelyn thanked both couples for inviting them on this hike. They both admitted that this weekend could have been a disaster for both of them, but thanks to Sonia's matchmaking skills, everything went perfectly and she received a well-deserved round of applause. This was the beginning of a strong love affair between Evelyn and Dwight, who stayed in touch through their phones and met whenever they could arrange it, which was only on weekends due to his living in Durham to complete his studies and her apartment in Charlotte. Her roommate, Adrian, ignored the sounds and smells of sex that constantly emanated from Evelyn's room almost every weekend when they satisfied all their passionate desires. Adrian even offered to have a threesome with them because Dwight looked like Maluma, but Evelyn flatly refused. She would never in her life share her man with another woman. Evelyn recently accepted a job as an accountant with Creed, Fitch and Associates, a CPA in Charlotte, North Carolina, with a starting salary of $16 per hour. It was enough to live comfortably, sharing expenses with a roommate, but she couldn't save money for the future. Adrian soon began a relationship with another woman. Apparently, she was bisexual. Evelyn was glad that Adrian never approached her. Evelyn confessed and made it clear to Dwight that she was sensitive to alcohol. She swore that she would avoid him completely unless Dwight was there to always guard her. She had fallen into this trap too many times in the past before she met him, and she was never again willing to let something accidentally interfere with her precious relationship with her new loved one. Thanks to her winning personality, Evelyn made many friends everywhere she went. Her colleagues thought highly of her and were always ready to stand up for her. There were about a dozen regular friends with whom she often hung out after work for dinner or drinks. She was always popular among the regulars of any establishment she visited. Of course, Sonia was her cousin, so she had a close relationship with all of Dwight's friends through Steve and Greg, who treated her like an adopted little sister. They regularly tried to pick her up if she went out with friends to a club or to a dance party, but every time she rejected all the suitors. She danced with her friends without problems, but never danced with members of the opposite sex. She was faithful to her man, and Dwight constantly received confirmation of her devotion when he talked to their mutual friends. Dwight continued to live in the Duke University dormitory until he graduated with honors. His parents and Evelyn attended the graduation ceremony. As he received his PhD, Evelyn couldn't contain her enthusiasm during the ceremony. She organized a grand graduation party in Charlotte, which was attended by all their friends and acquaintances. If you were Evelyn's friend, you automatically became Dwight's friend. Everyone happily supported this cheerful couple. At least 100 people came to the celebration. Several times, Dwight's friends asked him when he was going to propose, but he simply said that there were more important matters to deal with first. He had already been burned once in a long-term relationship, but with Evelyn, it seemed like something completely different than what he had with Patricia, who had long since disappeared from his thoughts. Arnold was also banished from Evelyn's memory. Dwight did everything he could to help her forget. Dwight applied for a position as a history professor at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, where he once studied. His timing of the application was perfect. The senior lecturer in the history department was preparing to retire to travel with his wife while they were still healthy, and his deputy humbly accepted the appointment in his place. This left a vacancy for a history professor, which he hoped to fill. Knowing everyone in the department and thanks to his passion for history, he received a lot of support and recommendations. After 4 interviews over the summer, he was finally offered a professorship with a starting salary of $60 to $400 a year or $30 an hour. One of the benefits of the position was a personal assistant secretary in the form of Jeanette Williams, who had recently been hired for the job. When Dwight first met her, he thought this amazing brunette looked a lot like singer-actress Selena Gomez. He was lost for a moment, looking at her from head to toe. When she caught him doing this, as so many before him had done, she rolled her eyes sharply and quickly blurted out, "No, I'm not Selena Gomez's sister. My height is 165 centimeters, weight 59 kilograms, measurements 91.571 to 89 centimeters, 34B, dress size 6, and yes, they are real. I'm single and divorced. My husband left for another man. It was a real blow to the ego. Now tell me, are you really Maluma's long-awaited brother?" Dwight's eyes widened at her ability to read his mind. Then it dawned on him, and he laughed. He laughed out loud. He laughed so hard and for so long that Jeanette began to laugh too, until their eyes filled with tears and their sides began to ache. "You caught me, Jeanette. Thank you for putting me in my place. I deserve it. I think you and I will get along great. I promise to always treat you with the respect you deserve, and I hope I won't be so clumsy again after today." They shook hands and discussed the procedures and protocols he wanted her to follow when working with him. She admired his honesty and frankness from the very beginning and worked hard to prove his worth every day. The same day he was offered and accepted the position, he invited Evelyn to one of their favorite restaurants, where, without telling her, he invited all their friends. She was surprised to see almost everyone there as their special guests. She was even more surprised when, right after dessert, he got down on one knee and proposed. She enthusiastically said yes. They found a nice 3-bedroom house to rent and moved in immediately after signing the contract. They got married 3 months later. Dwight's father, Earl, was his best man. Of course, Steve and Greg were friends and happily shared the honor. 2 other close friends from Duke were also groomsmen. Evelyn asked her cousin Sonia to be her maid of honor for obvious reasons. Greg's wife, Debbie, was one of the bridesmaids along with her other friends. The November wedding was successful and well attended. Thanks to Evelyn, they became one of the most popular couples. It seemed like everyone knew them. Dwight's parents, Earl and Harriet, insisted on giving them a week-long honeymoon to Maui. They had the most wonderful time of their lives. They had the world in the palm of their hands. He was 26 and she was 23. Their combined income was $95,680, which put them in the middle class for a family of 2. Of course, they both wanted children eventually, but she urged him to wait a few years until they were established in their careers and had increased incomes to better support their children. Dwight believed that finances would always find a way to work out, but he gave in to her wishes. Another goal she wanted to achieve was to build a large, luxurious home of their own design. Dwight knew that she grew up in a very wealthy family, but her parents had a policy of not helping their adult children financially so that they would better understand the value of money. When they die, their estate will be divided evenly among their 4 children. Dwight respected her parents' logic, but the only problem was that, until she came of age, Evelyn was spoiled by the wealth and luxury that surrounded her and the status symbols that came with it. She worked hard to ensure that she and Dwight lived within their means, but often tried to buy the best things with their hard-earned money. Over the next 2 years, they frequently spent time with many friends. They always had a lot of fun and maintained close relationships with everyone. They went to shows, movies, art galleries, sporting events, Broadway productions, and many other events. Their lives were busy, full of friends everywhere. Marriage made her even more outgoing than before, and Dwight loved his wife with all his heart. Evelyn returned home from work on Friday, and after snacking on the Chinese food she bought on the way home, said, "Do you know how we have to take those boring refresher courses every year to keep our accounting credentials active?" "Yes. And what?" "Well, usually Tia, my boss, signs us up for courses here in Charlotte or Greensboro or Winston-Salem, depending on their availability and our current schedules. Apparently, there are no courses available in these locations right now, and since we're in a bit of a slump right now, she signed up 6 of us for a 2-day course in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is at least a 3.5-hour drive from here. It will be next Thursday and Friday. It pisses me off, and she knows it, but they pay all the expenses, and since it's on them, I either go when they tell me to or pay for it out of pocket at other times when I might be too busy to take a day off." "Next week, Thursday and Friday," Dwight asked between bites. "Yes, right. We will leave on Wednesday after work, straight after hours, and drive straight there to check in and be ready to start the course early on Thursday morning. Even though I don't want to go, I thought it would be cool if you took a couple of days off and came with me. You could have fun during the day while I'm in class, and then we could go sightseeing in the evenings and on weekends," she suggested. "Wait, let me check," he asked, taking out his phone and looking at his calendar. "Sorry, honey, I can't. Next weekend, there will be a Renaissance fair on campus. If you remember, Jeanette was actively lobbying for me to chair the upcoming event. I will be the youngest professor to ever run this carnival. There is no way I can get out of this, especially considering that I am leading the entire event. You were there last year, and we had a great time." "Crap. Exactly. You actually told me about this, I just forgot. I was hoping to salvage something from the weekend by spending it with you. I've always dreamed of visiting the North Carolina with you. Is there a way to change courses with someone else at a different time? I'm sure we will have a great time at this year's event. There will be a lot of knightly armor brought from the film studio. I've always dreamed of trying one of these on and feeling what it's like to fight with swords in a combat environment. I wouldn't want you to miss the opportunity to see me make a fool of myself," he added with a smile. "I guarantee you that I would much rather go to your Renaissance fair than listen to those boring old accounting lectures. You'd think they'd find a way to make them interesting, but I don't have much choice. If I don't go when they sign me up, then next time I'll have to use my vacation days for this, and I don't want to waste a minute of my vacation being boring," she said. "Are you still planning to stay there for the weekend since I can't join you?" "Don't think. It won't be the same if I go sightseeing without you. I'll probably go separately so I can come back to bed with you right after class on Friday night," she said enthusiastically. "Don't worry, I'll warm it up for you, honey, although I will have to sleep in a cold bed on Wednesday and Thursday nights. I won't like this. Don't worry, dear. As soon as I get back on Friday, I'll start your engine full blast, and you'll forget I ever left," she laughed, stroking his leg under the table. "I can't wait," he added. They went out dancing and having fun on Saturday and Sunday nights with a variety of friends. Greg and Steve and their wives were usually where they were. They remained a very close-knit group. On Monday afternoon, Evelyn called Dwight's cell phone when she knew he would be between classes. "Hi, darling. It's nice to hear your gentle voice. To what do I owe such an honor?" he asked. "Hello, dear. I love you too, but I have a strange question." "Fine. Sometimes weird is good. What's your question?" "Honey, have you ever heard of Daniel Creighton?" "About the billionaire?" "Yes, about himself. He is a very interesting person," she advanced. "About? Have you met him?" "Yes, I met him today, one might say, completely unexpectedly." How did this happen? Didn't you hit his car? No, stupid. I haven't gone anywhere today since I arrived at work. He walked right into our CPA office in downtown Charlotte this morning. Can you believe it? She said enthusiastically. How did you meet him? Well, he has several large properties in North Carolina, and since Charlotte is the financial center of the state, he had our office conduct a financial review of one business he was considering. It was just an accident that he paid attention to me at all. He said he happened to be in Charlotte today for other reasons and decided to pick up the inspection report in person. Well, I guess that gives you bragging rights to me. The highest-ranking people I communicate with here may be several government officials who come occasionally. Of course, not billionaires. That's why I'm calling you, honey. We talked a little, and he said he wanted to meet you, us together, for dinner tonight. You have no other plans, right? Daniel Creighton, billionaire, wants to meet me, with us. But why? What does he need from us, ordinary people? Dwight asked. He said he'd explain tonight at Steak 48 at 8 p.m. This is a very good top-class restaurant that we have always wanted to visit. I heard they have amazing steaks and the freshest seafood. He invited us to be his guests tonight. It wouldn't cost us a penny. It's not for me to refuse the opportunity to meet one of the super rich. Did you know that there are just over 700 billionaires in the United States? He's in a pretty elite club. Of course, why not? Let's find out what this person might want from us. Today, he gave me his business card. I'll let him know we're coming. See you at home after work, honey. I love you, she said joyfully. I love you too, he replied. When they finished cleaning and getting ready for the evening, be sure to wear your most expensive suit, honey. We have to make a good impression, she insisted. Of course, he answered with a joking intonation. With this little black dress and heels you're wearing, I could wear a suit covered in gold, and he still wouldn't notice me. Isn't this dress too revealing for such a high establishment? She replied nervously, I just want us both to look our best. It's not every day that we meet a person whose net worth exceeds 67 billion. 67, I can't even imagine. Well, if you're dressed like that, let me find my baseball bat so I can fight off all the guys who try to take you away from me. You are a stupid man. You know that I love you and no one else. I'm afraid you're stuck with a little old me. And I'd like to impale you with something right now. You're my sex kitten, he said seductively. Calm down, big boy. Wait until we get home, and then I'll definitely ring your bell. They entered the restaurant together at 7:55 p.m., and were immediately shown to a table where the billionaire was waiting for them. As he stood up to greet his guests, Dwight noticed that he was a rather elegant man in his early 40s, quite young to have amassed so much wealth. Mrs. Underwood, it's so nice to see you again. Please call me Evelyn. Of course, Evelyn, and let me say that you look beautiful today. And this charming young man must be your distinguished husband, a professor of history. Can I call you Dwight? Of course, sir. Thank you for inviting us. Let's drop the formalities, if you don't mind. Just call me Daniel. That's what all my friends call me. Thank you for your kindness and hospitality, Daniel. Evelyn and I truly appreciate your invitation this evening. Please take a seat. I pre-ordered for us. Evelyn told me earlier today that you can't decide whether you like lobster or king crab better. I was told that the seafood here is very tasty, so I ordered both so you can enjoy them. And for Evelyn, I ordered the filet mignon, which I hope is cooked to perfection. If not, let them know, and they will prepare it the way you want. Well, you must have had a good chat this afternoon to learn about our favorite foods, Dwight suggested. Not really, Dwight. But since I'm hosting today, I asked your beautiful wife about your favorite dishes to save time. Evelyn blushed at the compliment. Let's start eating before it gets cold, suggested their rich friend. Throughout the meal, Daniel was an impeccable host, asking interesting but not too personal questions of his guests in order to get to know them better. The affable man could tell jokes as well as anyone and constantly made them laugh with his humorous stories. When everyone was full and the wine was flowing, Daniel decided it was time to reveal his proposal. Again, you two made my evening, and I enjoyed getting to know you both a little better. This will make it easier for me to propose to both of you. As you can imagine, I am a person who, when I see something I want, goes after it and almost always gets it. I don't want to beat around the bush or waste any more of your time than necessary, so please forgive my frankness. Dwight, your beautiful wife captured my attention and interest at first sight, and tonight she continues to hold me captive with her charm. He continued, knowing this, I want to be very frank and make what I think is a good offer for both of us. I'd like to get to know your wife better, Dwight, much better. In fact, I would like to spend 24 uninterrupted hours with her as my companion, during which she will satisfy all my needs and desires in every way. Now, lest you think this is a one-sided offer, I want you to know that I am willing to offer you $2 million in exchange for her wonderful company. I assure you, I am not joking or playing. This is a legitimate, serious offer for your consideration. Dwight was stunned, too stunned to even speak when Evelyn asked, "When do you want to arrange it, Daniel?" "What?" Dwight screamed in his head. His head was still spinning in shock when he heard what the man said, and his wife calmly asked for specific details, as if this could even happen. Without wasting a second, Daniel answered, "Today is Monday, the 1st of June. I have already cleared my schedule so that in 2 weeks, from noon on Saturday, June 13th to noon on Sunday, June 14th, it will happen. I will send a car for your wife exactly at noon and return her unharmed the next day without a single scratch. I am a very attentive and gentle person." Daniel snapped his fingers, and a man in an expensive suit sitting at the next table jumped up and put 2 documents in his hand. "Imagine what you could do with $2 million, my friends. $2 million. Of course, one day of her time can be sacrificed for $2 million, Dwight. Here are the conditions. $2 million will be transferred to the account of your choice the moment my driver reports that she has entered my limousine. She will be able to use her cell phone until she is brought to me. If you find that all the money is not in the right account, just call her, and she can order my driver to return her home immediately. These are simple non-disclosure forms, which I will require both of you to sign, indicating that the nature and terms of this agreement will never be disclosed under penalty of loss, and will also serve as evidence of your agreement, individually and in its entirety, to this agreement. I insist that everything be open and understood. Your prior consent must prevent any consequences to your marriage from this event," he said passionately. Evelyn looked at her husband timidly with a faint smile. Dwight seethed and slammed his hand on the table. "I will never agree to this. My wife is not for sale, Mr. Creighton. She's not some sellout bitch you can just find on a street corner. It is not for sale for any amount. You just have to find a real, easy-to-get woman somewhere else. Evelyn, I think we've already taken up enough of this man's time." He grabbed her hand, as if about to leave. "Please, Dwight, please reconsider your decision," Daniel insisted. "I know that this idea shocked you, and you both need time to discuss and understand it. I assure you this will not happen unless you both agree and sign these forms with a notary. I don't want to be a problem in anyone's marriage. Of course, you can leave now if you want. No one is keeping you here, but I want you to know that my offer is valid until noon on Wednesday, June 10th. I'll make other plans if I don't hear from you by then," he added. Dwight stood up and picked Evelyn up with him. "You better make those other plans you mentioned, Mr. Creighton. You won't spend time with my wife, that much I can say for sure. Thank you for dinner. All the best, sir, Evelyn," and he indignantly took her out of the restaurant and back into their car. As he drove them home, she began, "How could you disgrace me like that in front of Daniel?" "Disgrace you? How the hell did I embarrass you just now? Did it disgrace you that I stood up for you and told him you weren't some cheap bitch? He is a client, a very rich client, and very important to our company. The least you could do is treat him with respect, even if you didn't like his proposal," she argued. "Respect? Respect? You mean the same respect he showed you by treating you like a corrupt bitch? He didn't do anything like that. You're blowing everything out of proportion. $2 million, Dwight. That's $2 million for us in one single day of my time. It will all be over before you know it, and we can buy our dream home and start our family right away instead of waiting even longer. Imagine all the good things that money could bring us, she pleaded. We will never get this chance again. I can't believe my ears. Did I marry the wrong woman? Do you want to break our marriage vows so soon after our wedding? He flushed. Don't be funny, Dwight. Nobody talks about breaking oaths. I know how we both feel about it. But this will not be a violation of vows in any case. We will both know the rules and agree before anything happens. It can't be called cheating if we both agree to it in advance, she suggested. Not treason, right? Well, that's cheating in my book, no matter how you look at it. And the price does not matter. Whether you are available for $2 or $2 million, you will still be so easily available in my book, and I will never agree to my wife becoming a sellout. So if you want to have sex with other men for money, just scam me and sell yourself to anyone, he said furiously. Understanding his pain over the idea and his angry reaction, she decided to leave the subject for the night. You're right, dear. I'm sorry this upset you so much. Let's forget about it. Take me home and let me fulfill what I promised you earlier, she insisted. Unable to resist her sensual charms, he gave in, and she passionately made love to him to distract him from this explosive topic. Dwight thought this would be the end of it. He was wrong. On Tuesday night, after a nice dinner at home, she turned on her computer and showed him numerous real estate listings for homes ranging from $1 million to $1.25 million. She marveled at the magnificent architecture, craftsmanship, and quality that went into each home as they took a virtual tour of each one. She asked his opinion on a number of features that she knew he really liked, and commented on how great it would be to have something like that and have it soon, especially if they contracted directly with the developer to make their dream home a reality. Life. Dwight was no fool and knew exactly what she was trying to do. Why are you showing me all this when you know we can't afford it right now? Perhaps in time, but not now, honey, he noted. But you already know that we could afford it right now if you would just open your closed mind to new possibilities. You know that I love you. I love you with all my heart. I'm not going anywhere, never. You and I will grow old together with our wonderful children, who will adore and appreciate the interesting life that we have given them. I won't fall in love with another man, no matter how much money he has. I'm yours, don't you understand? Why can't you let me do this little thing? And then we'll be provided for life, for life. All our dreams will come true. Dwight tried to control his anger. He wanted her to see him as a reasonable person, and not as a closed, angry person. He thought for a moment and gave her his answer. Let me ask you, Evelyn, if Daniel Creighton had contacted me instead of you, and let's say he was willing to pay me $2 million to kill one of his worst enemies, someone I didn't even know, and he swore that he could arrange it so that I would escape punishment, and because of our non-disclosure agreement, no one would ever find out. Nobody but him, you and me. Would you ask me to do this and take the money so that we can enjoy all the benefits that you are now describing to me? Of course not. Don't be ridiculous. This is murder. There are no two ways about it, and I would never approve of murder or spend blood money. I would never let you do something like that, she replied proudly. Do you hear yourself? It is the same. If you went to him, you would basically kill our marriage and our happiness for the rest of our lives. You would be killing our future together and the potential children that only you and I can uniquely bring into this world. Because if you ever go to him, our marriage is dead, over, complete. While you're imagining spending that $2 million on our wonderful future, imagine doing it with another husband who might accept a corrupt woman as his wife, because I am not that kind of person. If you want a different future than me, tell me now and we can divorce and go our separate ways. I will never participate in such a thing. Never, he sighed heavily. Evelyn began to cry at his words. They cut through her heart. You're right, dear. I am so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. Obviously, I didn't think so. You are more important to me than $1 billion. I'll call him and let him know what we've decided. Don't worry about it anymore, honey. I do not want to lose you. No amount of money is worth a future without you in it. He hugged her tightly, relieved that she had finally seen the truth. They cried together for a minute over what she almost did to them. She reminded him that she needed to pack for her continuing education class in Wilmington. "Don't forget, I'll leave straight from work tomorrow and be in class all day on Thursday and Friday. I'm still planning to come home on Friday night and have crazy sex with you when I get there," she said lustfully. "I'll do whatever I can," he replied, grabbing her ass. Evelyn called him on Wednesday evening, complaining about the long journey, but assured him that she had arrived safely, saying that the hotel was actually quite nice, and not some hole where her company had put them up. They exchanged the usual words of love and called it a night. On Thursday night, it happened again, but she tried to seduce him into some phone sex. He politely declined, saying he preferred to wait for the real thing on Friday night. "About that, dear. All the girls here are really pushing me to see some sights with them on Saturday. I knew they would do it. 2 of them even got down on their knees, begging me to stay with them for the weekend. For some reason, they think it won't be as fun without me. None of their husbands came either. If we go sightseeing on Saturday, we'll stay until Saturday night and leave on Sunday, and I'll be back in your loving arms. Will it be okay, honey?" she asked melodiously. "Now you will be away for 4 nights instead of 2. I will be very sad to see your side of the bed empty for 4 nights in a row. I know, honey, and normally I wouldn't ask, but they were so insistent that I said I'd ask you." "Oh, so I'll be the bad guy if I say no." He sighed heavily. "Okay, if it's that important to you." "Thank you, honey. You are the best. They will be grateful to you. By the way, since I'm staying, they want me to go around town tomorrow night after class to celebrate a bachelorette party. I'll have my phone with me, but as you know, some of these places can get pretty noisy. Don't be offended if I don't hear the call and don't answer, okay, honey? Understand. Perhaps I'll also go around the city on Friday and Saturday evenings, since I'll be single for the weekend," he chuckled. "Looks like I need to call Sonia and ask her to keep an eye on you so you don't get into trouble. She can claw out the eyes of any girl who tries to approach you just as easily as I can," she laughed. "It's not fair," he complained. "I have a nanny, but you don't. You need to get a walker, kid. When I finish with you on Sunday night, you'll need them to get to the office on Monday morning. Take care of yourself, dear, and be careful on the roads when returning." "I want the love of my life in one piece," he assured her. On Sunday afternoon, Evelyn arrived home and, much to her relief, Dwight was still at the Renaissance Fair on campus. He texted her that he probably wouldn't get home until about 5 p.m. She was tired from spending time away from home and just wanted to take a shower and freshen up. After she cleaned herself up, she put the dirty laundry in the wash and started cooking meatballs in the kitchen. Dwight always liked her homemade spaghetti and meatballs. She was full of nervous energy coursing through her veins. She was determined to take him to bed and take over his body to make up for the lost time. And she was true to her goal. By the time she was done with him that night, he was one of the most satisfied men. On Monday morning, before they both left for work, Dwight had the presence of mind to ask her if she had informed the billionaire of their decision. He wasn't worried because they hadn't signed or certified anything. He just wanted to make things clear. "When I tried to contact him before I left last week," she told him, "I couldn't reach him directly. His assistant said that he was busy with some arbitration and that he would contact me early this week. He gave us until Wednesday, if you remember. When I hear from him, I'll make sure he understands, I promise." Satisfied, he headed to his office to begin a new work week after the Renaissance Fair ended. On Tuesday evening, Evelyn brought home an 8 by 10-inch envelope. When Dwight noticed him, he asked, "What is this?" "There's a photograph inside measuring 8 by 10. Look for yourself," she insisted. When he saw the image, he let out a high-pitched whistle. "Wow, that's a lot of money." "You can say it again." "This is a photograph of a suitcase containing $1,200 bills. You're looking at a total of $2 million, honey." $2 million? This can only mean one thing. It's Craigton again, right? Who else do we know with $2 million in cash? He made me promise that I would bring this photo home and show it to you before giving him the final decision. He hopes you will change your mind. But he says he needs to know before tomorrow to make definite plans for this weekend. Well, you can tell him that he can stick his 2 million where the sun doesn't shine. I hope this is his last insult to us. I don't want to hear any more about that rich bastard who thinks he can buy whatever he wants, including people, Dwight exploded, tearing the photo into pieces and throwing it in the trash. If you don't mind, I'll tell him a little more diplomatically. He is still a valuable client for our company. I don't want to be awkward around him. He can fire me if he wants to because of my attitude. Let me deal with it my way, she pleaded. Certainly. I understand office politics better than you might imagine. It's not what you say, but how you say it. It's not what you know, but who you know that matters, he added. Hey, I have an idea. Why don't we invite Greg and Debbie to come with us to Lake Norman this weekend? I bet Sonia and Steve will want to join too. This way, we won't sit at home and think about what could ruin our marriage if we gave in to his greed. That's a great idea, she agreed. I'll call Debbie first and see if we girls can organize it. We are much better planners than you three amigos ever were. The three amigos got together again, and the couples relieved their previous fun times and added new ones to them. The constant jokes and activities completely cleared Evelyn and Dwight's minds of what could have been. In fact, Evelyn and Dwight outshone the other couples in creating the musical mood every night. She has a new devotion to her husband that will never die. Daniel Creighton was never mentioned again. When National Secretary Day arrived, Dwight sent Jeanette a dozen red roses to her office and invited her to a very nice dinner with him and Evelyn. He praised her hard work on his behalf, acknowledging that she went above and beyond her responsibilities as his partner at work. She always made him coffee every morning when he came to the office. She kept his files in order and did everything to make him look good in front of others. Evelyn thanked her for making her husband's life at university easier. She never felt a moment of jealousy. She knew for sure that Dwight was faithful to her to the end. 2 months later, Evelyn suddenly began to experience morning sickness, and this did not go unnoticed by her. 3 different pregnancy tests from 3 different manufacturers showed the same thing. She was pregnant. Of course, Dwight was overjoyed, happily sharing the news with all their friends. Earl and Harriet Underwood were especially excited about the prospect of their first grandchild. Evelyn was the youngest in her family, so her 3 other siblings had already given their parents the joy of their first grandchild, so their announcement was less important to her parents. Dwight sensed her anxiety and tried to get her to open up to him. What happened, honey? You seem a little worried about this pregnancy. The doctor said there might be a problem. No, dear. Thanks for asking. I just saw my gynecologist for the first time today, and she said everything looks completely normal. Well, then what bothers you so much? Don't know. These may be the first worries. This will change our lives forever. Maybe I'm afraid of becoming ugly and unattractive to you when I become big like a whale. In no case, get such thoughts out of your head. I think you are the sexiest pregnant woman in the world, and I will desire your body even more because of our child. Our future is within you, and I can't wait to see it. But the more you become pregnant with our child, the more I will desire your body. You can be sure of that, he said confidently. Thank you, darling. This calmed me down a little. I think part of it is the surprise. I think we're just proof that birth control pills aren't 100% effective. I guess I just expected that we would have to wait a little longer before we started our family. I understand what you're saying, honey, I really do. But I look at this as a blessing, and not as a hindrance on our path to some plans. We did everything right. We fell in love, got married, used contraception, had sex, and are now blessed with a child, regardless of our initial preferences. This may be God's way of telling us that we are ready for a family. I promise that I will support you 100%. I know what's what. I promise to change my share of dirty diapers. You have me, honey. We're in this together. She cried, sobbing at his comforting words. I don't deserve a husband as good as you, but I'm so happy that we are together. I swear I will be the best mother to our child, dear. I know you will, honey, and I will be a better father. 7 months later, little Dwight Earl Underwood was born. He was almost exactly like Dwight when he was a baby. Dwight was delighted with Evelyn's suggestion to name him after his father rather than other members of her family. He remained close to his father, and Earl was very proud of his eponymous grandson. He made sure that this grandson would be spoiled to the extreme and would not need anything. Evelyn returned to work after finishing her maternity leave. Harriet helped her a lot during the day, helping her with everything. The bond between mother and daughter couldn't get any closer. When the question of placing little Dwight in kindergarten arose, Earl and Harriet immediately protested, declaring that no one could take better care of him than his grandmother. Dwight's mother was a housewife, and caring for her little one gave her a new purpose in life. She insisted on picking up and returning little Dwight every weekday so as not to inconvenience the new parents, and the mention of payment for her efforts was insulting to her. It was a gift of love that she decided to give. Over the next 2 years, Dwight received 2 salary increases. 2 of these raises were national increases for all government employees, and the third was a bonus increase given within the local university for his outstanding performance. Professor Underwood was considered the fun professor, and everyone tried to get into his classes, whether it was related to their course of study or not. He brought history to life for his students, and they loved him for it. He was chosen as his favorite professor 2 years in a row. Evelyn also excelled at her job. She could breeze through corporate reports like the best of them, and in addition to being recognized, she also received good salary increases based on her proven track record. It was during this time that she again signed up for her annual professional development sessions, and as before, there were no local sessions available that coincided with her schedule. However, instead of Wilmington, the destination this time was Morehead City, North Carolina, which was 300 miles away, requiring a travel time of 5.25 hours. Classes were held on Tuesday and Wednesday. As before, she would have to leave on Monday afternoon and check into a hotel on Monday evening, check out on Thursday morning, and spend most of the day traveling back. Evelyn fought bitterly against this trip, but she was practically given an ultimatum. On Monday morning, before she left for work, she asked Dwight to keep the bed warm for her until she returned Thursday evening. Harriet still cared for little Dwight during the weekdays, so he was in good hands. But Dwight will be a single parent with a baby for 3 days in a row. She asked him to call her in the evenings after little Dwight had gone to bed, because her nightly schedule would be more flexible than his. They could talk and catch up every evening while she was away. As usual, Dwight's college workload was very light during the summer. He only had one weekly class, which he taught on Fridays. They usually tried to get the baby in bed by 8 p.m. every night. Some evenings went better than others. Monday night, after putting the baby to bed, Dwight went to the mailbox to pick up the mail, something Evelyn usually did, taking care of the mail and bills since she was an accountant. He threw a stack of letters on the kitchen table and decided to immediately call Evelyn while the baby slept peacefully. He knew that this status could change at any moment. He had an easy day planning courses for the fall, updating lectures to include the latest historical discoveries of the world's explorers. She emphasized how boring the lectures were and said that she was reading a romance novel to take her mind off the monotony. After the call ended, he stood over the trash can, quickly throwing away the spam when something caught his attention right before he tossed it in the trash. He fished it back out, noticing that it was a letter from a bank they never used, addressed to Evelyn. He decided to make sure it was just another sales letter before throwing it away and opened it to take a quick look. He was intrigued to discover that it was an annual bill from the Bank of Gaston in nearby Gastonia for the rental of a safe deposit box in her name only. This was extremely unusual. The bank they used in Charlotte gave them a free little safe deposit box, and he knew how it worked. It was inconceivable to him that she could have such a secret that he knew nothing about. His first reaction was to immediately call her, demanding an explanation. But then he thought that if she had the key with her, she could delete the contents to another location without telling him. He had seen her keychain many times and knew all the keys on it, including the key to her office. The keys to safe deposit boxes are unique in appearance, and he was sure that she did not have one with her. Therefore, the key must be hidden somewhere in the house. They had a small table in one corner of the living room where she handled all their bills, taxes, and other paperwork. He decided to start searching there. A superficial search turned up nothing, so he began a more thorough inspection, pulling out all the boxes one by one and even checking to see if there was anything stuck to the bottom of the box. Nothing. That was almost 2 wasted hours, he thought. Still puzzled, he decided to take a shower and go to bed for the night. Early Tuesday morning, after pinning the clothespin on his nose, he changed little Dwight's diaper, freshened up his bottom, and got him ready for the day. His mother arrived on time and picked up the baby for a day of fun and pampering with his grandmother. She spent more time with him every day than they did, and her love for him was undoubtedly equal to theirs. Dwight called Jeanette, his assistant, giving her tasks for the day. He said that he had business to attend to, and that she should not expect him that day. He then began his search for the key in full force. He searched their bedroom from top to bottom. He checked every drawer, cabinet, under every table and chair, anywhere he could hide a small flat brass key. He stripped their bed down to its frame and checked every crevice and nook where a key could be hidden. Still nothing. He searched the baby's room up and down, again finding nothing. He thought maybe she hid the key at work. In light of his null results, this seemed the most logical explanation. By then, the day had already passed, and his mother was soon to return her son home. He decided to think about it that night and try to think the way she might think while hiding the key. His call to her on Tuesday evening was dry. He wanted to ask her about it so badly, but he knew that if he did, she might hide her secret even further. He was determined to come from a position of knowledge and not leave it with the upper hand. She asked him what was wrong, and he said he was just tired from sifting through a lot of papers for his research, which was true in a way, but he let her assume it was related to his job. They exchanged words of love and wished each other good night. On Wednesday morning it dawned on him. All night he wondered where she could have hidden the key without suspecting that he would look there, and he came to a place that he had actually missed without thinking. He went back to her closet and pulled out her wedding dress. It was dry cleaned and stored in a double zipper bag with a clear plastic window, so the dress can be seen without opening the bag. He unzipped the bag all the way down to where he found her wedding shoes. The shoes were dyed to match the dress, so she kept them with the dress at the bottom of the bag. He pulled out his shoes and shook them. To his disappointment, they didn't make a sound. He then stuck his hand inside each one. In the toe of his right shoe, he found a small fabric bag, and inside the bag was a key. The key was easily identified by the mark 3007. He was both relieved and puzzled. Relieved because his suspicions were not unfounded. She did have a secret safe deposit box that she clearly didn't want him to know. He was puzzled for two reasons. First, he wondered why. Secondly, he wondered how he could gain access to this cell without notifying her. Now that he knew where the key was, he returned everything to its place. He could quickly retrieve the key at any time in the future before she suspected he knew of its existence. He knew he needed to cover his tracks. He took the envelope containing the bill for the safe deposit box and went to the office supply store in search of a similar one. It was a type of envelope with two clear plastic windows through which the sender's and recipient's addresses were visible. He found a small package of 25 envelopes and placed the bill in a new envelope and sealed it. He threw the rest away to avoid suspicion. Before he left for work on Thursday, he put a stamp on the envelope and left it in their mailbox along with yesterday's mail. That the stamp was not canceled was not a big problem. This happens often. Now, when Evelyn returns home from Morehead City, she will, as usual, pick up the mail and deal with it in her usual way. But Dwight was absolutely sure that he would never see that bill again, and since he now knew where the key was, it didn't matter anymore. However, he didn't want to risk her moving him to another location, so he devised a plan to find out what the cell contained. The first thing he did was bring him in as a confidant. He needed an accomplice to carry out his plan, and the only person he knew he could trust was Jeanette Williams. No matter the circumstances, she was always by his side. He decided that he needed to tell her the truth in order to gain her support. She opened her eyes wide as she listened to him reveal Evelyn's secret and what measures he took to find the place where the key was hidden. She was completely ready to help him in any way. Dwight found a website on the internet that offered the production of fake driver's licenses. The price of the fake ID ranged from $185 to $400 depending on the level of verification. He did not need the ID to be checked against an electronic database. He only needed the ID for a superficial identity check. He took a sample of Evelyn's signature and asked Jeanette to practice reproducing the signature from time to time to achieve the best accuracy. When her forgery was accurate enough for visual inspection, he asked her to order a fake ID in the name of Evelyn Underwood, but with her own photo. She used a forged version of Evelyn's signature for identification. The order cost $225, which Dwight happily reimbursed her in cash. The ID was delivered to her home within a week. Dwight purchased a high-quality, inconspicuous leather briefcase from the lost and found department. Items stored for more than 120 days were sold for just a few dollars. He usually carried a compact leather folder for the papers he brought home, but he had no idea what might be in the safe deposit box. As the old scout motto went, he wanted to be prepared. Once everything was ready, Jeanette accompanied him to the Bank of Gaston in the nearby town of Gastonia on an ordinary weekday. They entered together. She showed identification in the name of Evelyn Underwood and asked to see Safe Deposit Box No. 3007. Dwight went with her to the vault, where Jeanette was asked to sign a signature verification card. She signed the card, forging Evelyn's signature under two other signatures that were already on the card. Apparently, Evelyn did not visit this cell often. The bank employee checked Jeanette's forged signature with two others on the card and asked her to produce the key, which she did. The bank employee opened the door to a large locker numbered 3007 on the bottom row of lockers in the vault. He then opened the door to a side room adjacent to the vault, where the contents of the locker could be viewed, and left them alone. When Dwight pulled the cell out, he noticed that it was unusually heavy. This shocked him. She was very heavy. It took a lot of effort for him to lift the cell and carry it to the table for viewing in the small private room. He estimated the cell's weight to be about 70 pounds. He asked Jeanette to ensure that they were not disturbed by other clients while he looked through the contents of this unusual secret locker. On top of the box was a brown envelope, which he set aside temporarily to see what was inside that made it so heavy. What he saw shocked him again. He estimated that there were between 40 and 60 rolls of coins. He took one of them and opened it. As he poured a few coins into his hand, he saw that they were one-piece 0.999 fine American Eagle gold coins. He immediately knew what it was, but he didn't want to burst into tears right there in the vault, in front of his assistant. He returned the coins to the roll and closed it. He then hurried to transfer all the rolls of coins from the safe deposit box into the briefcase he had brought with him. He then placed a brown envelope on top and asked Jeanette to carefully return the empty box to its place and call an employee to close it and return the key to her, which was done efficiently. He didn't try to carry the briefcase by the handle. The handle would quickly break and the contents would spill onto the floor. Instead, he carried it tightly against his body, supporting it with both hands from below. On the way back to Charlotte, Jeanette, trying to be sensitive, didn't ask what was in the cell that made it so heavy. She saw tears streaming down his face and knew he was more upset than he had ever been before. "She cheated on me, Jeanette," he sobbed. "Evelyn cheated on me. I'm absolutely sure of this. There is no other possible explanation. I'm sorry, Dwight. She always acted like she loved you. Even when you weren't around, she never said anything bad about you." "I don't understand." Jeanette was perplexed. "She was just trying to make up for her betrayal. That's all. It's just a game to distract from the fact that she cheated on me. If she really loved me, she wouldn't sleep with another man. Now that I know this, I can't live with her anymore. I'm going to divorce her and make her part of my past. I hate it when history repeats itself. First Patricia, now Evelyn. Well, I know how to learn from history, and I'm not going to sit back and let it get away with it." He dropped Jeanette back on campus and asked her to keep things under control, explaining that he might be away from work for a couple of days. He asked her to destroy the fake ID so that she could not be accused of anything wrong. She promised to do so if he promised not to ignore her and to answer her calls if she contacted him for any reason. She assured him that she was on his side and would fiercely defend her boss against all enemies. He appreciated her devotion. If only Evelyn had been so faithful. Dwight cried as he returned home. He grieved the loss of his wife, his marriage, his happy home, his future. He mourned that his son would grow up in a single-parent family. His spirit was broken and needed time to heal. He carried the heavy load into the kitchen and placed it on a chair next to the table. He then began to retrieve and count the coins he removed from the briefcase. Each roll contained $21 gold coins. He counted 50 rolls. 50 rolls of 20 coins each amounted to 1,000 ounces of pure gold. He opened the brown envelope and looked at the papers inside. On top was a receipt addressed to Daniel Creighton for the purchase of 1,000 troy ounces of gold eagle coins at $2 per ounce, for a total of $2 million. This was 100% confirmation. No more proof was needed. She spent those 24 hours servicing him like a corrupt bitch, and that was her pay. Now it's clear why she hid the loot from him. She knew that if he discovered this, their marriage would be ruined. She was right. But Dwight knew he didn't sign anything. He looked through the rest of the papers. There were copies of non-disclosure agreements from both. Her signature was forged. She only had copies, but it was still proof of her betrayal, at least to him. As he sat in his sadness, he had a new thought that he had never considered before. Little Dwight. Although he seemed to be his copy, there was now doubt about his paternity. Damn her, Dwight initially wanted to run away. He hated conflict, especially something as complex as divorce. But Reginald was right. Dwight was born and raised here and loved his job and the people he worked with. If he transfers elsewhere, he may not be able to achieve the same success. The decision was taken. If he can get a predatory lawyer on his side, he might survive this without significant loss. Plus, he had a lot of friends who would help him get through it. But then he suddenly realized that these were their common friends and not his personal ones. So he wasn't sure which side many of them would take. He knew Steve, Sonia, Greg, Debbie, and his parents would support him, along with Jeanette, but he wasn't sure about the others. Time will show. Dwight called Vera Tanner's office and set up an early morning meeting 2 days later. He suddenly realized that he wanted to make a clean and tidy break with Evelyn, and if he confronted her before he had everything in place, it might end up being a lot messier than he wanted. He needed at least 2 weeks to get the DNA results. He had to pretend and lie with the cheater until everything was ready. The first thing he had to do was hide the gold until he was ready to present her facts. He found an old cardboard box that was almost the perfect size for storing gold, placed 49 rolls of gold coins in it, and sealed the box tightly with tape. He then carried the heavy box into the backyard and opened the door to the crawl space. This was a place Evelyn never went to, so he felt confident hiding her there temporarily. He hid the box behind the water heater and covered it with a piece of old tarp. Feeling satisfied with the gold he had hidden, he placed 1 roll of coins under the spare tire in the trunk of his car. Again, she had no reason to look for anything there. He went to a copy center and made copies of the documents she had along with the gold. He saved the originals to take with him to the office. He could lock them in his office next to his desk. The office was locked and Jeanette had the only other key, and he trusted her. He threw the briefcase into a trash can in the parking lot and returned to the office, where he hid copies of Evelyn's documents. Jeanette saw that his door was open and decided to check on him. "Dwight, how are you? Are you okay?" she asked with real concern. "It's much better now that I see your smiling face," he replied. "Have you decided how you will deal with this? I mean, with the divorce and everything." "I have an appointment with a lawyer in 2 days. I have copies of documents confirming her infidelity, which are securely locked in my closet. Her betrayal even made me doubt Dwight's paternity, so I submitted a request for a DNA test, the results of which should come in about 2 weeks. I'll have a better idea of what to do next after speaking with a lawyer, so until I have a clear exit plan, I guess I'll have to stay here for the next couple of weeks until I get results. I'm a bad actor, so pretending I have a headache to avoid having sex with her is not an option for me. But the thought of touching it again disgusts me. She ruined everything about intimacy for me, but I don't know how to avoid sex without revealing what I know. I don't want a confrontation with her until I'm ready for it and need more time. How can I put it aside for at least the next couple of weeks without giving away what I know? Jeanette thought for a moment. You can tell you have a hernia. What? He asked. A hernia, specifically a hernia in the groin. I remember a couple of years ago, my sister's husband strained himself while lifting something heavy and had severe pain in his groin due to a hernia. He was told not to lift anything heavy for at least 3 weeks. It drove my sister crazy. There was no sex because it was too painful for him, and she, let's say, has a healthy appetite. They survived it and are doing well now. For a while, his doctor even thought he might need surgery to fix it. You can tell Evelyn that you were tense in some way and went to the doctor, who diagnosed you with a hernia. So she won't demand sex from you and won't expect you to engage in any physical activity. That excuse alone should last at least 2 to 3 weeks, and maybe by then you'll have a clearer idea of how things are going to play out. Jeanette, you are a genius. That's exactly what I'll do. I will say that I was helping move cabinets in one of the lecture rooms and felt a sharp pain. You took me to the where I was diagnosed with a hernia, and the university is paying all the costs. This will give me time to keep her at bay without letting her haunt me to death. It's perfect. And you will be the only one who knows about it, if she calls you with questions. I'll always have your back, Professor. You can count on me. She laughed. The trick worked perfectly. All Dwight had to do was grimace in pain from time to time, and Evelyn was completely confident in herself. She expressed disappointment at the lack of intimacy, but realized that there was nothing she could do. She wouldn't let him lift little Dwight or do the chores that involved lifting anything heavy. He still had to kiss her, but he was glad of the lack of sexual intimacy. He vowed never to touch her like that again. His meeting with Vera Tanner, a lawyer, went as he might have expected. She informed him that although he was sure of her infidelity, she did not advise filing for divorce on the grounds of adultery without absolute proof, such as audio or video recordings, photographs, or paternity test results that did not match his DNA. At that moment, he had none of it. At this point, she advised him to consider filing for a no-fault divorce with property divided equally, which was very common these days. He asked her not to submit anything until she received the paternity test results, which were due in a couple of weeks. Then he can make a more informed decision. When asked about the fee, he carefully placed one roll of gold coins on her desk. This roll contains 20 American Eagle gold coins, each weighing exactly 1 troy ounce. The current price is $2,000 per ounce. 20 ounces at $20 an ounce would give a value of $40,000. Give or take a few dollars. Let me know if you need more. He saw no reason why Evelyn's infidelity and betrayal should not be used to pay for her own divorce. He no longer wanted to spend his own earned money on her. When the DNA test results finally came back, Dwight received another unexpected blow. This blow shook him to the core. He was almost made with raging emotions. Jeanette hugged him as he read the results. The chances of him being little Dwight's biological father were less than 50%. But what shocked him even more was the note at the bottom which stated that although he was legally excluded as the child's biological father, it was extremely likely that either his brother or father was the most likely candidate to be the biological father, given the closeness of the results. Dwight knew he didn't have a brother. His world was falling apart right before his eyes. He had just received a blow from hell itself. He didn't have definitive proof, but it seemed that his own father was little Dwight's biological parent. Then it dawned on him. It hit him like a ton of bricks. That's why she wanted to name the baby Dwight Earl Underwood. Earl is after his father because she already knew he was the father. Dwight repeatedly vomited into a nearby trash can until all that came out was bile. This unexpected betrayal was beyond the pale. Evelyn traded her body for a billionaire and lied to him about it. For some reason, she also slept with his father and became pregnant by him. Little Dwight wasn't his son, he was his half-brother. No wonder his parents were so close to him. They knew. They knew he was Earl's son. His mother was not babysitting her grandson, but her stepson. They still didn't have a grandson. Dwight had never felt so lost and alone in his life as he did at that moment. Understanding the pain he must have felt, Jeanette hugged the crying man and did not let him go, even as he squirmed, trying to escape her embrace. She didn't know what he could do after learning the extent of the betrayal from those he loved most in the world, but she wasn't going to let him hurt himself as long as she was breathing. At that moment, he just wanted to curl up and die, but that damn Jeanette wouldn't let him. She kissed him all over his face and said, "Damn it, Dwight, all is not lost. You haven't lost everything. You have me. I've loved you, Dwight, since the first time we met. Why do you think I always follow you around like a puppy? I know you don't care about anything right now, especially about me. But I want you to know one thing. If you never know anything else in your life, know this. You are loved. You are loved by me. I care what happens to you, even if you don't care. I would die if something happened to you. I hate the pain you're feeling right now, but all I can do is love you through it. And damn it, I will do it. Please let me love you, Dwight," she said, sobbing, with tears mixing with his tears. "What? What do you mean, Jeanette? How? Why?" he muttered. "You listen to me, Dwight Underwood, and listen to me carefully. Right now you feel alone in the world. The whole world has collapsed on your head, and it seems that you will die trying to cope with this pain. I see you in my mind, pressed against the wall, leaning over, waving your arms and screaming at the top of your lungs right before you die. But there's something you don't see. You can't see because your eyes are closed. If you would open your eyes for a moment, Dwight, and look just once, you would see me standing next to you, swinging and struggling with all my strength along with you. You're not alone, Dwight. If you die, then I will die with you. And if you win, then I will celebrate your victory with you. I will never hurt you. I will never betray you, Dwight. Never." He was stunned. Never before had he felt such intense love, expressed with such ferocity and unprecedented devotion. It wasn't just love, it was love with legs. Suddenly his pain became bearable. She was no longer unbearable. He knew for sure that he did not bear his burden alone. It was a defining moment in his life. He instinctively pulled her towards him and kissed her passionately, then asked, "Did you really mean what you just said?" "Every fiber of my being, every cell of my body. Yes, I mean every word, and I hope and pray that you will give me the chance to prove it. Then, with your help, I think I can get through this, if you stick around and help me from time to time." He reassured her. Near, Dwight, you'll run into me everywhere you turn because I'll be there for you through it all. Whatever you need, I will provide it," she added. Serene calmness came over him, such as he had never known before. It was a world beyond his understanding. He had just received a gift worth far more than any $2 million. It was a gift that money cannot buy. It was priceless. Dwight suddenly had clarity of purpose and determination. He realized that something had filled the void left by the enormous betrayals he had learned about. Confidence. He had someone he knew he could trust, and that was enough to get him hooked and overcome everything he had to face. He thanked Jeanette for being there for him when no one else could. He promised her that he would call her if he needed her help. She told him that her phone would never be turned off and that she would be available to him 24 hours a day. He took copies of documents from Evelyn's safe and brought them home, placing them on the kitchen table. Then he took out a box of gold from the underground of the house and opened it on the table. He then wrote a note for Evelyn to find when she got home from work that day. As you can see, the cat is out of the bag. We both know what that means. You have lied to me, betrayed me, cheated on me, and deceived me every day for the last 2 years. Nothing I believed is true. Take all the money you made by trading yourself for another man, all of it. If you think about leaving anything for me, it will just be thrown in the trash. I already know that this gold means more to you than our marriage. Now you don't have to hide it anymore. I kept one roll for myself. I'm using it to pay for our divorce. It's funny, isn't it? The money that another man paid you to have sex with you is used to divorce you. I thought it was ironically appropriate. I'm going out to dinner tonight. I want you to be gone when I return. You shouldn't have any difficulty finding a place to live with nearly $2 million at your disposal. Let me know where you want your divorce papers to be delivered. Dwight is naive. Dwight called Jeanette and invited her to dinner. He took her to Gastonia to avoid their many friends. He didn't want to pretend in conversations, knowing that his divorce was coming. They spent a soulful time together. Joel left her at the door at 9 p.m. She invited him inside, but he wanted to start rearranging the house without a wife to worry about. His guts twisted when he saw her car in the driveway. This was his home for now, so he quietly walked inside. She was waiting for him, sitting on the kitchen table. He did not hear the sounds of the child in the house. "Where have you been? I've been waiting for you for hours," she asked. "I told you in the note. Why are you still here? You should have left like I asked." "I live here. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. That's why